What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. And guys, there is a player whose name just will not stop popping up for the Kansas City Chiefs in NFL mock drafts. We've got to talk about it. I'll tell you who that is right after this. Ladies and gentlemen of the Chiefs Kingdom, the Kansas City Chiefs have been heavily linked to a particular player in this year's NFL draft class. This is a name that I have seen popping up in mock drafts nonstop for the Kansas City Chiefs, and that is, of course, Ohio State left tackle Josh Simmons. Earlier today, I found this article from Pro Football Talk saying that Ohio State left tackle Josh Simmons visits Colts and Chiefs. Apparently, he had a top 30 visit with the Kansas City Chiefs, which shows that the Kansas City Chiefs at least have interest in possibly selecting him with their first round pick. And then on top of it, I just pulled a mock draft where the Kansas City Chiefs take Josh Simmons. I believe this one was from SI Chiefs. They say Simmons too good to pass up on for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, guys, usually every year I make a video discussing a few prospects that I do not want the Chiefs to draft in round one at all costs, or just players that I have on my do not draft list. And instead of doing that this year, I think I'm just going to make a few separate videos talking about some guys that a lot of Chiefs fans may want to see the Chiefs draft and has been heavily linked to the Kansas City Chiefs that I don't necessarily agree with. And unfortunately, one of those players is Josh Simmons. Now, I'll tell you exactly why I am not all that thrilled about the Kansas City Chiefs being connected to Josh Simmons. I know everyone is still freaking out about the Chiefs left tackle position, despite the fact that they signed Jalen Moore in free agency, the former San Francisco 49ers left tackle. But let's start right there. Jalen Moore, this is a guy that they signed this offseason, 2-year, $30 million deal, $15 million per year. We need to clarify this because I think Chiefs fans haven't quite grasped this. Jalen Moore is going to start next year for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to get a shot to prove himself as a left tackle. You're not paying a guy $15 million a year to not play. There's no way that Jalen Moore does not play next year unless he's just an utter disaster. I mean, that's the only way. But you're paying him $15 million per year. He's going to get his shot. So if the Kansas City Chiefs take a left tackle in this draft, they're going to be a project. They're going to sit behind Jalen Moore, which isn't necessarily a bad idea. I don't want to crap all over that idea because I get it. I do. And I understand the logic with the Chiefs taking a left tackle with their first round pick. But I really do not want to see the Chiefs waste a first round pick on a left tackle, reaching on a left tackle in this class. And this is more about what this draft class has to offer than the actual need for the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, in an ideal world, you'd love to grab your left tackle of the future in this draft. I just think this is a very weak draft class at offensive tackle, and the fact that we're even discussing Josh Simmons being the pick at 31, which, by the way, doesn't help you next year. It's not a pick that's going to help you next year. And with this window that the Chiefs are in, I don't like wasting picks on players that don't help you now. I don't like pushing this stuff down the road. I get it. You have to solve the left tackle position at some point. But again, Jalen Moore's going to get a shot. We know that already. That was signified in the contract that he signed with the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's a 2-year deal, which means that you can kick the can down the road to next year to find your left tackle when the draft class is a little bit stronger with options. Because the thing about this draft class, guys, is most of the left tackles in this class are short-armed and they're projects. I mean, take Kingsley Suamataia, for example, who the Chiefs got in the second round last year and everyone considered it a steal. He was mocked in the first round quite a bit. He'd probably be like a top 3 offensive tackle prospect in this draft class when you consider the measurables, athleticism, what he did in college. He'd be a top tackle prospect in this draft. That's how weak this draft class is. It's full of projects, and it's also full of short-arm guys who actually project more as offensive guards. Like, you know, Kelvin Banks, Josh Connerly. These are guys that there's a lot of talk about them being guards at the next level. Josh Connerly is another one that has been linked to the Kansas City Chiefs a lot. Do not like it. But let's talk about Josh Simmons in particular. I wanted to talk about him because this is the player that I've most seen mocked to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I have a major problem with it. First of all, he's coming off a torn patellar tendon, guys. A torn patellar tendon. This is not a torn ACL. A torn patellar tendon is devastating to a big man. This is a devastating injury, and I'm not sure people are quite paying enough attention to that because this is a really hard injury to come back from. There are not many guys that have torn their patellar tendon, especially big men, that have come back, and been the same. J.C. Jackson, Jack Conklin, these are guys that tore their patellar tendon, were never the same player afterwards. And remember Lucas Niang, actually, we have an example on the Chiefs. Lucas Niang won the starting right tackle job in 2021, tore his patellar tendon late in the season. 2 years later, didn't make the Kansas City Chiefs. That's how devastating this injury is. That is the injury that Josh Simmons is coming off of. That is a major red flag to me. This is not a guy that I would feel comfortable spending a first-round pick on. Now, if you traded back and maybe got him in the second round, or he was still available in the second round at the Chiefs' next pick, yeah, sure, I'd consider it just because the upside is so large. And I don't want to make it seem like Josh Simmons isn't a good player, not a good prospect, because if not for that injury, he may very well be a top tackle prospect in this draft. But this is still someone that's a project. He's got 33-inch arms. Those are much shorter arms than the Chiefs are typically used to, and the tackle prospects that they look for. He also has smaller hands. I'm not too sure about that. I was reading a scouting report from NFLDraftBuzz.com earlier today, and they compare him to a couple other players in the league currently. Jordan Morgan of the Green Bay Packers, Jalen Mayfield of the New York Giants. These are guards, guys. I mean, Josh Simmons is another guy that, you're probably going to have to move him to guard. That's where I see him. I'm not quite sure I see him as an offensive tackle, a true tackle in the NFL. And the fact of the matter is the Kansas City Chiefs do not need another guard. They don't. They've drafted multiple guards over the last few years. Wanya Morris can also play guard. You got Hunter Norzad. I think he's going to get a shot at some point. Mike Caliendo, say what you want about him, but he came in and played, admirably, in the place of Joe Tooney. He was an undrafted free agent. They drafted CJ Hansen last year as well. I mean, it just would not be a good use of resources to bring in yet another guard. I like Josh Simmons. There are things to like about him. I think he's a good athlete. He was moving pretty well at his pro day, and that's maybe why the Chiefs want to get a closer look at him to see, the exact details of the injury, maybe see if they're comfortable with him. But it just seems like there's a lot of Chiefs Kingdom that's fully on board taking Josh Simmons and have no concerns at all. I have a lot of concerns. I do not think this is a guy that is worth the 31st overall pick. I think, you already addressed your left tackle situation for next year. Jalen Moore might not be the long-term solution, but he's going to be the guy in 2025, in my opinion. And if you're really worried about, not having a solid floor, just re-sign DJ Humphries, who has already said that he wants a shot to compete for the Chiefs starting left tackle job in 2025 with a fully healthy offseason. I think the Chiefs owe that to him. They tried rushing him back from injury last year. Clearly there was something that they liked in him, though. So I think you could bring him back and he can give you replacement level left tackle play and a break glass in case of emergency type of scenario. Continue to develop what you already have, but I don't like wasting a first round pick reaching for an offensive tackle prospect in this draft because you feel like you have to take an offensive tackle. I just don't think this is the draft class for it. I think, the best course of action is to, like I said, re-sign DJ Humphries, bring in another veteran, Donovan Smith maybe even, who said he wants to play and is healthy, ready to go. And then you just make the team better everywhere else where you can. Draft best player available. Now, if the Chiefs feel like Josh Simmons is the best player available at 31, well, then I guess I can't argue with the front office there. That's what they get paid to do. But I have my own thoughts about it. This is not a player that I would be comfortable with the Chiefs taking at 31. He also had 25 penalties in college over the past 2 seasons. This is a guy that struggles with penalties. So coming off a major injury, struggled with penalties, doesn't meet the Chiefs' physical thresholds for their typical left tackle. Why is this guy we're talking about the Chiefs taking at 31? I just do not understand it. I know that's probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but for me, I would consider this to be a bad use of resources for the Kansas City Chiefs if they decide to draft Josh Simmons with their first round pick. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Would you be happy if the Kansas City Chiefs took Josh Simmons with their first round pick, or are you thinking another direction like myself? Definitely want to hear from you guys down in the comments below. But with all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com for more. Also, follow me on Twitter at showmefb. That's all I got for you guys in this one. I'll see you on the next one. And as always, go Chiefs!